Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Rockets. In this episode, I sit down and talk with one of the owners of Roosevelt Company, a men's clothing store whose passion was born from the love of classic movies, the rich smell of leather, the flavor of fine bourbon. Roosevelt Company is founded upon the principle that some things in life are worth savoring. First off, thank you for taking the time to sit down and talking with me. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for your time. My name is David Christopherson. I work with Roosevelt Company. I first started there 2016, a little bit before we opened. Been there ever since, and then nowadays I do whatever I need to. Everything from staying on the floor, selling clothes, helping people find what they need, and then more back end stuff too, making sure stuff gets paid for, and buying and ordering product too. I'll be going up to market in February, so just really, I wouldn't say there's any like one job that I have.
Yeah, just wear all sorts of different hats, just depending on what the day looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you originally from Huntsville, or did work or family bring you here?
Yeah, no, I'm originally from Huntsville. Grew up over in Hampton Cove, and then ended up going to Huntsville High, Calhoun for a little while, and then went to UAH and graduated there a couple years ago. I don't know. COVID has really thrown off the timeline of everything.
It's crazy just like how quickly, like when COVID happened, I feel like it was just like 3 years later.
Yeah.
And now that's where we are now. So in high school, would you say, and like growing up, would you say you always had a kind of like that interest in fashion, or like you kind of had that eye for style, or when do you think that style and that eye for style kind of first was born?
So in high school, no, I wouldn't say I did. It kind of started right after high school. I started working at the Ledges, and so that was like, to me, that was really my first step up in dressing better. I mean, we didn't wear much, but it was, you had like your tie, your vest. I really enjoyed like tying my tie every day for work. And I feel like that's when that love for fashion kind of started, and that appreciation too, for the finer things, so be it. But I think from there, it really just started growing over the years. And then starting at Roosevelt Company, that's when it just like launched.
Yeah. Because I mean, I guess like as far as what Huntsville had, I mean, there was no menswear store that kind of fit the niche that which Roosevelt Company is. I mean, it was kind of starting something that either Huntsville has never really seen before, and kind of those general conversations. I mean, so like at the beginning, you weren't technically an owner. Mm-hmm. When you first got started, you were just kind of an employee there.
Yeah.
What was that pitch like for Megan, who is the owner, to come to you and say, hey, here's this idea that we have to start a menswear store in Huntsville. We're going to start it on Clinton, a place that for the last 10, 15 years really prior hadn't really been a place people didn't really go downtown.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I mean, everyone's downtown. But like at the time, it was kind of like, this is something new that we're trying. Do you want to be a part of it? How tough was that pitch, and what was that pitch like for her to give you to join?
Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, it was, at that point I had worked at the Ledges for close to 5 years. So for me to leave there, and I felt like it was a good time to leave. I had bounced around jobs in there and kind of like learned everything that I could. I mean, I even started out lifeguarding and ended up being a cook for a little while, a bartender, like really, I did a lot up there. So it was a natural time for me to start to look for something new, and then to have the opportunity to start off before something even opened and be a part of it that way. I knew it was a chance, but I thought it would be really cool to be as big a part of something like that.
Yeah. So how did Megan kind of get involved and find you, or did you find her, or how did that kind of an initial meeting first happen?
It actually, so she ended up finding me through the Ledges. There was someone who I guess recommended me, just because of I guess the way I carried myself. I never really asked.
Yeah.
But we ended up, I kind of applied for it, so to speak, based off of this recommendation, and then just had the interview, and it was from there. It was just, chapter one.
Yeah. So from the initial pitching of this idea that Megan has to start Roosevelt Company, we're going to start this menswear store on Clinton. They're redoing this whole building kind of for us. From that moment to when it actually initially kind of opened and you were able to open your doors for customers, how long did that process take, and what did that kind of look like?
Well, that process took a lot longer than I was on there for. She probably, and don't quote me on this, but I think she was working towards it, going to market, everything for, I mean, the better part of a year.
Okay.
And then so I came on, it was about a month before we opened. So everything that I did was just, there was a lot of unpacking boxes, receiving inventory, kind of getting everything in like our POS system set up so that we were ready for day one.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, we were actually working out of Wesley's old office too. Like we had tons of boxes in there. I'm sure they were pretty frustrated.
And I feel like, because that's the thing with like a retail store, is like you really are buying all this merchandise and all this stuff way before you're opening. So you're spending all this money to kind of stock a store that isn't actually even open or able to even sell stuff. And so you're stocking all this and you're kind of working out of Wesley's office and you're kind of getting the firsthand experience in this retail store without actually it being opened. When you first opened, was the success of the store just like right off the bat, or did it take a little bit, or kind of what did that first week and month look like?
It definitely took a little while. The first week and month, there were, we had reached out to a bunch of people in the community that we thought were looking for something like this. So we had a lot of supporters that we knew. But then there were just a lot of people too that would, come in and not used to seeing anything like this in Huntsville. So there was a lot of sticker shock, a lot of even blatant questions. Just, do you really think something like this will last? And I mean, hey,
like I sure hope so.
Made it 5 years so far. Yeah, right. Yeah. But I think that just came from the place that Huntsville hasn't really had a store like this before. So just not knowing how or why something costs this much.
Yeah. And I think, do you think that with your background at the Ledges, that those kind of early connections with the business, I mean, the connections with what the Ledges kind of offered and what you were working with and people you've met and the customers you had there, do you think that connection kind of helped their initial Roosevelt Company to kind of get that sort of push it needed?
Yeah, I think it did. Because there were a lot of those faces in the beginning were people that I recognized from there, or we had, not a friendship, but a relationship with, like, oh, hey, how are you? Like, how are the kids and everything? Yeah. So, that definitely gave us a little leg up there.
Yeah, and because, I mean, like, if you look at like I said, I think you've been around probably for about 6 years, Roosevelt Company has. The unfortunate thing is a lot of small businesses that first 5 years don't make it.
Yeah.
And I think kind of seeing that first 5 years and like you now getting it 6, especially with 2 years of it kind of being COVID.
Yeah.
And then now looking at it, I mean, like the number of businesses that make it to 10 or even smaller. So kind of being able to adapt and kind of change things on the fly, I think has kind of made Roosevelt Company this place to stick. How had COVID and those like the 2 years, I mean, we're still dealing with it now, but like those tough first 2 years of it, how did that affect a retail store that pretty much benefits from people being in there and being in person?
Yeah.
And then now you can't really do that. How did you have to pivot?
Well, we pivoted a lot into more putting more of our product online. Right now, if you look at our website, there's probably about 15 or 20% of what we have in store is actually online.
Okay.
So we've never had a huge online store because I feel like people treat it more as a lookbook and see kind of what we have to offer, what options are out there. Because we have to alter a good majority of our clothes, whether it's just hemming jeans or a suit. I feel like you always want to try it on before you buy it. So online sales aren't huge for us, but during that time we devote a lot of time to putting more and more online. So we saw a good return from that, but then also just accommodating people, doing home delivery, running stuff out to their car. Luckily, we didn't have to shut down for COVID during those times, except for 1 month in April. There was a government mandate and all that. So we were able to stay open and kind of, just put a lot into marketing and online.
I mean, because I feel like, for those couple months, there's people going out wasn't kind of what what you were seeing for the first 4 years of being in business. For the first 4 years, you saw traffic continuing to increase. You saw new shops opening up on downtown, people coming to downtown that have never really been downtown. Yeah. And then you hit a wall with COVID, and it's like there's less people downtown. There's less people here. I think, like I said, a lot of it is what online is. I think the experience that Roosevelt Company has is that experience of you going there and walking around and seeing it. And I think that's kind of what you have created. And so to kind of pivot that to being an online experience is a tough thing. How much of your time do you think in the business goes into that sort of that customer experience of when they walk into the store and where things are laid out, and how much like how much of your time do you think is rearranging the store and kind of making that experience more effortless for the customer?
Probably the majority of our time, because at the end of the day, that's really our biggest selling point is the customer experience and our knowledge of clothing and us being able to help someone what they compare with clothes, what they look good in, what they don't look good in, and being able to find what works good for them or works well for them. Because I mean, you can find just about anything online.
Yeah.
But to be able to talk to someone when you don't really know a whole lot on a subject, I feel like that's invaluable.
Yeah.
And that's really, it takes up a lot of our time. So
Yeah.
but it's, it's what we got to do.
Do you think is the skills that you have now and kind of that pairing and that knowledge of fashion and the knowledge of style, is that something that you just been able to develop? Or did you, when you kind of jumped into this role in 2016 and then kind of in 2019 when you became kind of a part owner in it, do you think that, did you have tools that you were using? Were you studying things? Were you reading things? Or kind of how did you get that knowledge that you have now?
So even before the first interview with Megan, I read a couple books. At the time, I thought they were great knowledge, come out to find later, like, here and there, because it is hard because so much of clothing is opinion-based.
Yeah.
Now, there are certain things, like there's color wheels you can look at to see what pairs well with things, what colors typically go together. At the end of the day, I think it's just all about finding out what your style is, what you like, because there's nothing for me to say that, oh, this is wrong, this is right. Well, there are some things that are wrong, but it's very interpretive.
Yeah. So we kind of talked a little bit about it off air, but kind of the timing what you hit Huntsville was a time that, Huntsville never really saw this. Do you think that at the time when you hit Huntsville, do you think you were at a time that you were kind of before the curve? Like that Megan saw what Huntsville was going to be continuing to become, and that at its time it was new and it was kind of this outlandish thing to think that Huntsville could use a men's store, or that, the success would be great? Or do you think you hit it right at the right time, where right when Huntsville was becoming to boom and more real estate, more people were coming, more businesses were coming, that you hit it just at the right time to kind of see that success for Roosevelt and Company in conjunction with what Huntsville is continuing to grow?
Yeah. I honestly kind of think it's both.
Okay.
I think at the time it was before the curve. It was before there were a lot of shops, restaurants, and retail downtown. When we first opened, there was a handful of restaurants downtown and bars, and there really wasn't a whole lot of just coming downtown and walking around, seeing what shops are open. Like now we see that a ton.
Yeah.
And even, like you said, people visiting from out of town, from Chattanooga, from Nashville. That still kind of really surprises me because I don't, in my head, I'm like, no, we go there to shop and hang out. But now they're the ones coming here.
Which is crazy. Because, I grew up in Huntsville my entire life, and I've lived here. And so, seeing just the transition for downtown to even just Huntsville in general. I mean, like I said, you would visit Chattanooga because Huntsville didn't have stuff to offer. And now Chattanooga's visiting us. And it's like,
it's crazy.
Are you lost? Or are you, we're trying to find you and go to you, and you're coming to us?
Yeah.
And so, do you think you see more people, the people that come into your store now, and people that probably there's probably still people that find out about Roosevelt Company today, and they ask, how long have y'all been here? And you say, oh, we've been here for 6 years. Mm-hmm. Do you see a lot of those as being people that are actually living in Huntsville, people that are traveling to Huntsville?
I'd say a little bit of both, because there are people that live in Huntsville, and they'll come in and they'll be like, oh, how long's this shop been here? Is it new? And I'm always like, well, we've been here 5 years.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's kind of new, maybe.
But, there was never anything to come downtown for, so don't worry about it,
Yeah.
But we get a lot of out-of-town shoppers, too, and just in town for vacations or the weekend, or just wanting to get away, because it's just about hour and a half, 2 hours from a lot of those places.
Mm-hmm. I think so kind of, I recently had Wesley on the podcast talking about some of the construction, and his wife's Megan, and owns Roosevelt Company. And so they were talking about the construction they did for that Clinton Row shops and kind of all that sort of area where Elatere and Roosevelt Company is, and Honest. Do you think their vision for that, and what they were able to create now, looking at it in 2022, is the success is in parallel to what the success Roosevelt Company has been able to have? And do you think that even though, at the time, like I said, most people 10, 15 years ago really weren't down in that area?
Yeah.
There was stuff down there. People really kind of went to a couple of restaurants, but the idea of shopping downtown wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think their vision for that spot and that vision for what Roosevelt and Company and Megan had and what y'all have been able to create kind of is that base station for that Clinton, and that kind of brings people in and that experience they get to have on that row?
Yeah, I think it has been, because it's nice to have, instead of a lot of shops that are kind of strewn about, Huntsville, which we're at now.
Yeah.
But I think it was integral to Huntsville's downtown retail shopping, hanging out experience to have all those shops on one block. So you can shop for the guys, the girls. You can grab a coffee or a bite to eat at Honest. There's a nice range of that. And so even if you're coming downtown just to hang out at the park, I feel like you're going to come up and see that row, see that garage, and just like, oh, I wonder what's up here. And then you're like, oh wow, I didn't know all these shops were here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was very forward thinking of them, and glad they did it.
Yeah. So Huntsville is such a interesting place because of just what has come to Huntsville in the last few years and what kind of has been successful. And I think with men's style in Huntsville, I feel like it can be really tough to sell. Personally, I know for me, I wear what's comfortable, and I sometimes wear it till it's worn down, or even if it doesn't fit, and then I'm like, okay, I'll get rid of it. I don't wear things that are higher end, but I know that the higher end stuff sometimes is made better, kind of lasts longer, and all that good things. Do you see that same response from people that come in and kind of ask, why would I pay this for this? And how do you kind of deal with those responses and those criticisms of a menswear that's a higher end?
Yeah, we definitely dealt with that a lot more in our first years opening up, and just things of this nature being so alien to people. But I think once you sit down and talk to someone about, like, okay, this is why it costs this, it's made in America, or it's made by hand. I mean, I think at the end of the day, people understand that. Now, some people still aren't willing to pay the price for it, but that's just, that is what it is. Yeah. I mean, people want to spend the money on what they want to spend their money on. And I can't, that's not right or wrong. It's just, it is what it is. But I think once they see what all goes into creating a garment, the price, it's justified.
Yeah. And I think I think you said a lot of what you do at Roosevelt Company is just the education side of it.
Yes.
And it's the making people, even if they're not going to be a customer for you, or they're not going to be a customer at the moment, or maybe they'll be a customer in, a few months or a year or more. It's about being that place that educates people on the idea that, hey, you can put time in, like, menswear can be fashionable without being this kind of like, some sort of stigma behind it. Yeah. And I think that's where y'all kind of fit in. And like I said, with the businesses that are coming into town, and these people that are traveling here that are experienced and are used to places like Roosevelt and Company in their cities, people that are coming here from New York to come to work, or California, these places like that are all over the place. And so I think having this place like Roosevelt and Company that's able to say, hey, you've come to Huntsville before and you've never seen something like this, and you feel like you're not at home, but now we have Roosevelt and Company that kind of offers you something that makes you a little bit more familiar. Like I'm back home, or I'm back where I used to live, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So looking at retail and COVID, and just kind of being in the retail business is probably one of the toughest businesses to be in. I mean, I think especially with COVID and kind of just trying to going from a permanent location to an online store. What interests you the most about kind of working in the retail industry and kind of now being part owner in it, especially because it is such a tough industry, and kind of transitioning from what you were doing in the food industry at the Ledges to kind of what you're doing now?
I honestly, I really enjoy the strategic planning and the forward thinkingness of it. I mean, I know that's a little odd to say, selling clothes and everything, but it is. I mean, we have to go to market. Like, we're going to be going up to Chicago in February, buying for fall winter 22. Okay. So it all happens about 6 to 8 months ahead of time. And so I really like pulling the data and analytics of what sold, why it sold, trying to think about even different sizes that we wish we had more of, and kind of just adjusting that by there. That's probably my favorite aspect of it.
And I mean, like I know, like I've talked with Kayla over at Elitaire,
Yeah.
and the idea of markets and what that market experience is like is just mind-boggling for someone like me who has never experienced it. Could you tell me a little bit about what that market looks like, and when you're going to market and kind of that experience of trying to like, okay, I have this game plan of what I'm looking for, and then getting there and seeing the chaos it can sometimes be, and then trying to find it in the chaos.
So it's pretty tough, honestly. I know Chicago, the Mart is like almost 2 football fields full of just like booths.
Wow.
And all this, I mean, from socks, hats, leather jackets, suits, everything you could think of. So what we do about a month or 2 months ahead of time is we plan out and schedule meetings with a bunch of the brands that we want to see. And then we allocate time to just walking the floor, trying to find new brands, because that's one thing we do too. We always adjust brands that we carry too. I mean, there were brands that we started out with in the store that we don't have anymore because either they worked, they went out of business, they didn't work. So that's really cool too. But it's really overwhelming because by the end of the day, I mean, you have meetings from 8 to 5, and at the end of the day, you've seen almost 200 blue shirts, and you're just like, I can't see another.
I can't
blue
distinguish
shirt.
between the blue shirts. They look like blue shirts.
Yeah, and you're like, did I like this one better than that one I saw 6 hours ago, or was that one better? And so, it is a lot, but honestly, you take a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
Just to help remind you of what you saw.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to place anything while you're there. They usually give you a couple weeks to do that. So you're able to come back, take a look at everything, collect it all, and then say, okay, if we're going to do this shirt, well, it goes really well with this sport coat. So let's do that sport coat. And then we like that with these pants. So you're not just seeing what you like or what you think will sell, but you're really trying to coordinate all that to make a collection in your store for that season.
Yeah. So when you're going into it, are you kind of thinking, like I said, you're trying to create outfits with what you're doing so that when someone comes in, they can kind of be that one-stop shop, like you said, where you can get your shirt, your pants, your socks, your shoes, and any accessories to go with this outfit. And like, here's some sort of outfit that we have paired and we have come up with, but we'd love to help you create your own today. Is that kind of the mindset that goes into play when you're going to these markets?
It is. It's definitely, it's one of those constant things in the back of your head. Because there could be a jacket that I absolutely love, but we're not going to bring in a sport coat if we don't have anything in the store to pair it or sell it with. That just makes selling it or making an outfit for someone 10 times harder. Yeah. So it is. I wouldn't say it's all about that, but it definitely is. We try to coordinate everything that we do bring in.
Yeah. So you mentioned before, I mean, like your role there at Roosevelt Company has definitely changed throughout the years. I mean, just kind of where you are now is not what you were in 2016, and your experiences and your kind of your responsibilities have changed. What does that day in the life typically look like for you at Roosevelt Company?
Honestly, it's ever changing, which is part of the reason I like it so much, just because it never gets monotonous. Let's see. So today I'm going to go in and I have a list of stuff I need to take care of. But that could all change when someone walks through the door and goes, I have a wedding on Saturday and I need a suit for it. And then it's like, okay, all right, this is our number one priority now.
Drop everything that I'm doing and let's go help you with this suit.
Yeah, which we always want to have a good bit of lead time there because we do have to alter most stuff. But, there's always those situations where dog chewed it up or I'm in town for the weekend. I forgot my suit. That actually happened last weekend. There was a guy that had a wedding to go to and he was like, I forgot my suit. And so we had to get that to the tailor real quick, get it all altered, and we were able to turn that around. Wow. So, it's really hard to see or to say what happens in the day.
Do you think that was kind of the draw with leaving the Ledges and kind of coming here was kind of like you said, you finished what you were doing there, but you also kind of wanted that day-to-day change and where like things can be different every day, but there's also that kind of that consistency in what you can expect. Like you can expect some people to come in, you can expect these last-minute things, you can expect to make a suit, but that doesn't always happen every day. But you always have in the back of the head, like if someone comes in, I'm ready to measure them right now, boom, 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 get this out to the tailor, I can get it to you in 2 days. Like, is that kind of the draw that brought you to Roosevelt and Company?
I think so. It is, because I like that it's not stagnant. It's never going to be. There's pros and cons to that. I never know what to expect, which makes it fun. Then also it makes it really stressful sometimes. Yeah. But it's really nice for me personally just to be able to take that stress off our customers, too. So when they do come in and they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I have a funeral in 2 days. Like, I don't know what to do. And then it's like, well, okay, like here, just sit down, take a few deep breaths. Like we can handle this. Like it'll be fine. But yeah, I do think that was the main things that pulled me to doing something different, and then it being different every single day.
Yeah. So Roosevelt and Company, like we talked a little bit off air, it's much more than just a menswear store. I mean, like you said, you kind of gear that experience to offering you a lot of variety of different things, and there's even things that are located within Roosevelt and Company that isn't kind of part of Roosevelt and Company. Can you talk a little bit about some of the other things that people can experience when they go into the store, and like what sort of other things you offer?
Yeah, so we do have a one-chair barbershop in there with Roberto Contreras, Barberia. So he does haircuts, fresh shave or hot towel shaves, the whole nine there. He's a master barber. He came over from Atlanta, moved here because of family. So that's a great thing to offer. And then we also have in our little mezzanine upstairs, we do rotate kind of different pop-ups up there. We haven't done one in a little while just because of COVID. But last month we were able to have Lady Smith with the local little book vendor Snail in the Wall, which is great because, I mean, who doesn't love a good book?
Yeah.
And then she is absolutely phenomenal at recommendations and kind of like, oh, what do you like? What genre? Like, oh, here, try this. And I've gotten several books from her, and I've yet to find one that I didn't like.
Yeah.
But we like partnering with local businesses like that just to be able to offer different things in the store. We kind of toyed around with the idea of having like getting some local artists, having like almost like an art gallery up there and switching out an artist every month. But we were planning that early 2020, and so, then some stuff happened. So
unfortunately,
we didn't get to do that. We've also partnered with some car dealerships, and we had, I think it was about a year or two ago. But we have a big like garage bay door on the front, so we kind of rearranged the store. And then every weekend we brought a different car in from their dealerships. And
that's cool.
We had that on the floor. So that was really cool because people walking by would just like look over and be like, wait, why is there a car in there?
This isn't the Ford dealership.
Yeah. So, we just like doing little stuff like that and switching it up.
So looking at the last 6 years of you kind of being in Roosevelt and Company and different facets, kind of the general employee to kind of now being part owner in it, how much of your success thus far in the business would you contribute to your hard work, or how much of it would you contribute to being in the right place at the right time?
I think, I feel like I keep saying this, but I think it's a little bit of both. I do think it was right place, right time, and I would contribute it to Megan and Wesley and just them being good people.
Yeah.
And wanting to see people grow, people who do have a little bit of drive there, just putting their faith in them, because they have, I know I said I wear a lot of hats, but they have, I mean, innumerable hats.
I mean, the amount of stuff that they do is insane.
Yeah. But I think it's a combination of hard work, right place, right time, and then to just them wanting to help people and see them grow.
How can people connect with you and Roosevelt and Company and support you in what you're doing?
They can always call the store, see us on Instagram at Roosevelt Co. And then, too, if you're just downtown shopping around or going to lunch, going to dinner, just swing on by, say hey, come check out the shop. I mean, we're more than happy to just meet and talk with people and tell them kind of what we are.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me. I love learning more about Roosevelt & Company and your story and kind of how you got involved with it. And I continue to look forward to the success that Roosevelt & Company will have in the future for years to come.
Yeah. Thank you, Clark.